All right, my brothers and sisters from YouTube. Yeah, this is me. I'm back at it again. You're back in the house. Yeah, today's topic, I'm going to give you from my experience so far. And I believe it's been a very good experience. Something that I can, I guess, articulate to, everyone out there, you know. But let's dive right in, shall we? So, I give props to Alec for letting me use one of his videos. Shout out to him. Look him up. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. If you want to get into riding motorcycles and stunts and so forth, he's the one to look out for. So check that out. Without further ado, so check it out. So this video, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say this video. It's my first time doing a recording. So this topic is about dating in your 40s as a male, in my experience. It's going to kind of roll into the sexual market value side of the house. I wanted to do a separate recording on that, but this is going to dive into it a little bit. I mean, I eventually get there, make that one, but this is still going to touch on certain things about sexual market value and understanding where your worth is at as you get older. But from my experience, and I'll give you a breakdown. So there's a huge difference dating in your 40s as a male. So, and I'm just going to start it from my 20s because when you're in your teens, it really doesn't matter. To give you a breakdown of my lifestyle, or where I'm at, or where my time frame comes from. In my 20s, I was all single, no kids out there in the dating world. All my 30s, I was married. And now in my 40s, I'm actually single and back out there in the world. So taking that plunge back out there in the dating world is totally different than being in my 20s. I can't attest to my 30s because I was married, and wasn't stepping out of my marriage. But I did notice certain little things, but I really can't speak on that. But in your 20s, whereas a male, testosterone driven first, you are in pursuit of a female out there that you want to get with, that you're trying to hunt down, that you're trying to date. Really and truly at that age, you're just trying to really sleep with women. And so you're competing with all the other young men out there at that time. Competition's a little rough, but you're competing. But as you're in your 20s, and we're going to speak on, we'll keep it to the whole 20s time frame to keep it simple. You're chasing women within your same age group who are in their 20s. Now, sexually, as a male, your 20s, you're pretty much in your prime for procreation, testosterone driven, testosterone 120%. That's just nature's way of making sure you're a good breeder, but that's a whole nother topic. So you're in your sexual prime, but in your dating prime, you're at the bottom. And a lot of you guys in your 20s, or if you've been there, you've seen how women pick you. They have pick of the litter in that time. And a lot of times, they're picking older men, or the older men are picking them. 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But you in your 20s definitely have a hard time getting the women or woman that you want, that you're pursuing. And if you do, it's because her other choices have withered away. But you might not have been that prime target for them. Happens a lot, happens all the time. A lot of guys might say like, oh, that wasn't like me. I was able to get any girl I wanted. Yeah, but what about the ones you weren't able to get? And we're not taking into consideration looks. We're looking at an overall. But okay, for the guys that were better looking than some of the other ones, which is really due to interpretation or people's likings. Um, it all depends on your level and your attractiveness and who you attract, and it goes back and forth. But in your 20s, it was a lot harder for you to really get the desired woman. You're chasing them. You're trying to woo them. You're doing what you can to try to get noticed. Now let's move forward in life. I'm going to move up to 40 because I can't speak on the 30s. Now, in my 40s, it's a totally different ball game. It is literally the complete opposite. This is where it rolls into sexual market value. So in your 20s, you had nothing to offer. And women weren't looking for the full steady mate. But, or in their early 20s, they're not looking for that settle down with, start a family type person. They're actually at that stage to where, partying, having a good time, getting around, doing whatever, just like you are. So that's pick of the litter to where they can pick you. Now, when it comes to a time to where in their late 20s, early 30s, when the biological clock is ticking, or when a lot of their friends are getting married, that getting married time is starting to come to the forefront. Now, this is where they start looking for a desired mate. Some women do it the right way, and they find their mate in their 20s, whereas a male, you get that beautiful girl in your 20s and you guys get married, it's a perfect match in heaven. But women that wait too long and into their 30s, that try to get married to start a family, and when I mean starting a family, have kids, things start changing for them as far as what they're looking for. Standards start to slip because now it's trying to fill in the void. And I'm pretty sure you heard of a lot of the guys out there that talk about or speak about sexual market value and so forth, talk about women lowering their standards or going from the alpha to the simp, or I won't say to the simp, to the beta, then to the simp. So now they're just looking for that guy that can fill in the void. That's not the guy that they were originally looking for, but he's a good guy. He has a stable job, and he's a good family man, which is not a bad decision to make. But that's not her first choice. She's reduced to lowering her standard for that. Some marriages go 20 something years. Some marriages go 5 years because of this. But to give you an idea of the place where women are in their 20s and where you are. Now in your 40s, and there's different variations or different variations of the spectrum. So, single in your 40s, even if you have kids or if you don't, as a male, it really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you have children. But as a female, it does. And I'll explain why. So, in your 40s, as a male, your value has just gone up, sexual market value, because now at this stage in life, you should be somewhat successful, stable in your life, and should be able to take care of yourself and your own. As they say, when men get old, they age like wine. Or wait, yeah, we age a whole lot better, and that's true. You know, when women hit their peak, and I'm kind of repeating what you've heard out there with sexual market value, but this is exactly what I've experienced and seen. So when women hit their peak their peaks in their late 20s, but let's say once right around 35, if a woman is single, you have the upper hand. And and this is where it varies. So in your 40s, as a single man, and if you've been married, you're not trying to remarry. You're trying to date. Women in the same time frame are trying to find another mate. Someone, a handsome man that can step in, they can have a showpiece. And since it gets harder to find one, they're trying to get someone to fill the void because A, women can't stand being alone. B, all of their other friends are married and have boyfriends, so they want to be on the same page. And C, you have it's almost like they have to get what they can get now before time and nature takes its course and solidify their place. So in this age, they find a good man that they can grow old with. They don't have to worry about their value going down and not finding anyone. They finally latched onto someone. So this is where it changes, and this is where also I say it's a man's world. I hate to say world. In the 20s, it was a woman's world. I'll say a girl's because you're not even really a woman yet, but it's a woman's world. In your 40s and up, it's a man's world. So whereas in the 20s, women had the choice to be able to pick whoever they wanted, now men have that same opportunity because this is where it changes things. Women are trying to fill that void. I already spoke about that. Um, and it's harder to find someone of the caliber that they're looking for, especially when they were in their 20s. They were able to pick up, let's say if a guy was a nine, they were able to pick up nines because they were able to pick. But now they can't get those nines because their looks aren't the same, their bodies aren't the same, they're just not the same as when they were in their 20s. We'll speak on another video that discusses validation. But yes, nothing's the same, as it was when you were younger. So now it's harder. And then you have that guy in his 40s that looks good, that's established, and you look nothing like in your 20s. So now you're trying to woo this man whose standards are now they're higher. When he was younger, he had to get what he can get because your standards were too high for him. Now it's the other way around. And then what adds to this, and I'm telling this story because it will help females understand and make better decisions on dating men. So, where it's harder for women to seek to get that 9. So now they'll have to settle for that 5. And a lot of times that 5 really isn't looking for a relationship, but they're so desperate to fill the void. And one thing I did notice, the more children that a woman has, the more that she is more apt to fill that void, because it seems like it's harder for her to get someone. And that's the truth. A man could have 3 or 4 kids out there, and a lot of men, and this isn't me, because my daughter lives with me. I have 50-50. A lot of men don't do it. Don't know why, not getting into that. But half the time they don't really see their kids, so pretty much 85% of the time they're single. So they can spend time with the woman, help parent that family, which if you step into a ready-made family, you'll never be number one. And I hate, and I'm trying not to use the word desperate, but it seems that a woman that has more children are more less lowering their standards to try to get a man, because I'm going to say a lower value man will might take that journey, but a high value man dating a woman with 2 or 3 kids and seriously jumping into a relationship knows that it takes a lot. And if he was previously married, and for him to step in and do that, it takes a whole lot. Now, if he's never been married, there's more of a chance of him doing that because he hasn't been there before. And if he's been there before, he might date, but he's not going to marry. But I have seen the differences between having kids and not having kids. So, without really stretching this whole thing out, um, so in my 40s, I've noticed that it is a lot. It's a man's time if he's out in the dating world, and many people may argue this, but it's the truth. I've talked to people, I've experienced it. I know a lot of guys that are out there running and gunning. Myself, I'm not running and gunning like that. This is just the observation. And it's the truth, because as the tide shifted to where in your 40s, like I said, you're most likely more established. You've probably heard this before. Calm down, more established, and more of a catch for a woman that is not in her prime when you're in your prime. Just that being said alone speaks volumes. That when a woman was in her prime, she was the professional and you were the amateur boxer out there. She wasn't boxing with you, or she picked her sparring partners. You can't ask a professional to box with you because it's not up to you, it's up to them. And as the tides change and shift, now the man is the professional and the woman is the amateur. He's a professional later on in life, so, but without beating this thing down into the ground, this is how I feel about the topic. This is what I've experienced. If you have any questions or if you have any feelings about this, go ahead and drop a comment. But when you drop a comment, make sure it's an educated comment. You can say some heinous things, who cares? Hateful things because you're being spiteful. But make sure it's an educated, because right now we're just all trying to learn, opening everybody's eyes. So, that being said, everybody have a good day and hit that subscribe button and peace.